Welcome back to Interjections. Welcome change to the panel members today. Andrew has finally resigned in disgrace. And myself, Jay, I am the new leader of this podcast. So I'll welcome my Trey Musketeers today, Tres Luces, Miko, and Irfan. Miko, how are you doing today?
Hi, thank you. I'm doing great. Sunny summer day here in Finland, and looking forward to discuss the fantastic Inter Mercato as always.
Sunny Finland day. What's that, like 9 degrees Celsius?
Actually, it's pretty nice. Over 20, 25, so really,
Oh,
really
that,
nice.
that that's a real
Perfect.
scorcher.
Yes.
Irfan, how are we?
Hola, señores, señores. I'm going to try to say it's not coming home in Spanish, but I'll massacre it so bad. But no, I'm doing well. Not too bad at all. Can't complain.
That is a great segue into our first topic, which is the Euro 2024 final that took place pretty much. We recorded right on the eve of the kickoff, so it's been a full week at this point, but we still need to recap it. How are we feeling that our preferred result came to pass and England did not win? Seems kind of sick that I'd say England did not win as opposed to Spain won, because Spain most definitely deserved the win based on how they played the whole tournament. Thoughts on the final? Let's start with you, Arfan.
Um, Obviously, super happy with the result. I think Spain were deserving winners. I'm glad England lost because going into the tournament, I was pretty open about how I'm team anybody but England. So overall, no complaints. The entertainment factor, I think, for the final was good as well. It was entertaining. There were some good goals. Um, I, I was not anticipating Cole Palmer to score in the final, but I'm sure our listeners in England were. So no complaints there either. So overall, yeah, I think it was a good match. Spain was impressive throughout the tournament, so they're deserved winners. They beat pretty much every good team that was around, whether in the group stages or in the final or in the knockout stages. So I think they're good winners. Gamal, I think, was super impressive throughout. I still think that the best player in the entire tournament was Fabian Ruiz, not just because of seriea bias, but I think he just commanded that midfield like nothing else. And even when Spain took off Rodri, they didn't really miss a beat because they had Ruiz in there and he was just dictating everything. England, I think, really suffered because my view of it is that I think they tried to like force feed Foden into this lineup where it didn't really make a lot of sense. Basically, every goal England scored, I think, was with Foden like off the pitch, like on the bench, or he was not involved in it at all. And Bellingham, I think, suffered because they tried to jam Foden in as either some second striker or playing alongside Harry Kane. It just didn't really make sense. It never really linked up. And Bellingham was kind of forced out wide, wasn't as influential. Whenever Bellingham floated into the middle and was able to dictate play, he usually had an assist or, he ended up scoring, including in the final. He was very influential in the goal that England did score. So I think that it was bad tactics trying to force Foden into this match when it didn't really make a lot of sense for him. And I think they kind of marginalized both Bellingham and Saka, who personally I think are their two best players. So it was a weird kind of tournament tactically for England. I think a lot of people probably felt that way. But again, they still made it to the semifinals, so they have something to be proud of. But I'm glad, very glad that Spain won.
Yeah, you got to say that England were underwhelming across the entire tournament. They scraped through every stage by the skin of their teeth. I think they came from behind in pretty much every game right up until the final. They were literally seconds away from going out against Slovakia until some Jude Bellingham pulled some overhead kick out of his asshole. Likewise, they came from behind late against Switzerland and won on penalties. And then what was it? They needed a late goal to beat Holland as well, right in the dying stages against our friend Stefan de Vrij. Um,
And a fake penalty. Don't forget about the fake
that
penalty.
Yeah, that's right. I actually still haven't watched the highlights from that game. I just really didn't want to see England, with a rousing come from behind victory, so I declined to watch them. But now that I know that the now that I know what the final outcome was, I'm happy to go back and revisit that game. In any instance, 100% agreed that they were tactically all over the shop, and or rather, I think they were all over the shop because of the lack of kind of uh, tactical belief, or rather the conviction they had in what they were doing. It seemed like Southgate went with the names that made sense on paper without really taking into account how they would work together as a unit and the functions that they were doing on the pitch. So you had Bellingham dropping quite deep, you had Kane dropping quite deep, but no real fast wingers to kind of, aside from Saka, I mean, no fast wingers to kind of feed into space. And when you get people like Foden and Saka up front by themselves on the flanks, sure, they can kind of cut in and go direct for goal the way Saka did against Switzerland, but by and large, there's just not enough threat there without any late runners into the box or any physical presence in the box. So I felt the whole system was confused tactically. Miko, your thoughts on this Spanish side, and especially the winning captain Alvaro Morata, who has joined yet another big club in his illustrious career.
Yeah, I think he played an okay tournament. Like he was the captain of the team, like super experienced player, and I think he scored only one goal in the first match, if I remember correctly. But he was still there starting, I think, each match, and I think that's he played a bit like uh, I would say how Lautaro used to play for Inter. Like he's doing a lot of this kind of a dirty stuff there, like pressing a lot and giving help to the midfield and like being part of the way they play. Not just standing there up front, but uh, truly try at least trying to be part of the system, how they cycle the ball and so on. But of course, you would expect the number one forward to get a little bit more goals than one against whoever was it. Was it Croatia? Maybe it was. But yeah, uh, as for the Spain in general, yeah, they had a great tournament and deservedly win the whole thing. The route, as Irfan mentioned, it was, if you would say it was a tough one. Okay, maybe Croatia and Italy wasn't at their best, but they are so-called big countries in a sense. And then there was Germany and France along the way to the final. Then they beat England, so it was like a no questions asked best performance. If we compare to England, which didn't have any big countries along their way, apart from maybe Netherlands. But yeah, they deserved the win, and I kind of liked the way it wasn't like the typical uh, short short pass stuff like it was with when Xavi and Iniesta were there, but it was still a bit like that, but not quite. How do you say it? I didn't find it as boring as back then in the days when those two were running the show. But yeah, they were impressive, and Irfan had a good point about Fabian Ruiz that he really dictated the tempo there with Rodri, but even in the final without him. So it was a great tournament by them. So kudos
Yeah,
kudos to who's the coach? I don't remember the name.
De La Fuente. I was just about to say
Yeah,
he's managed to bring like because I agree with what you're saying about Spain being less kind of wanky than they used to be, just passing the ball around a billion
yeah,
times.
yeah,
They seem
yeah.
to have managed to insert a bit more directness into their game, I feel, and so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think De La Fuente deserves a lot of credit for that.
yeah. I completely agree. I think it wasn't the same old kind of boring tiki taka style, lateral passing until the team's bored to death, and then you do some clever diagonal through ball or something like that. That was kind of their mo for a long time. And I know everyone at the time, and maybe now, still thinks there was some, you know, beautiful tactics involved in that. But all the matches were so boring. Like I think on that one Spain run to the World Cup win that they had, they won every match starting with like the last group stage all the way through every knockout 1-0, and it was incredibly like defensive. It was very boring because they would have 70% of possession, but it was almost never forward, leaning possession. And this Spanish team was different. I mean, they still had elements of that, like the possession game, but they were much more direct. They would play through their wingers a lot more. The wingers would invert a lot more. The midfield would come crashing in. So overall, and their winger and even their wing backs were very forward a lot. Like Cucurella was like everywhere for them. So I think overall they definitely played differently than the Spanish teams of old that had a lot of success, and it was actually fun to watch them. They were entertaining, they were offensive, they were on the front foot, which was nice. And someone commented, I forgot who it was in the media, that the Spain's win more than anything was evidence that attacking football can win tournaments, because the way England played, the way France played, it was so negative, it was so defensive, it was not courageous or brave at all. They would just be so tactically tight and not like loose and aggressive and trying to attack at all, trying to win every match 1-0 or go 0-0 to penalties. I mean, that sort of stuff it's like incredibly frustrating to watch. Like you have to be a little ambitious on the pitch, and Spain were definitely that, and it paid off for them. I think they played really well. That last goal they scored was, I think some would say against the run of play, and Oyarzabal, who all Inter fans know pretty well because of our Real Sociedad matches, like he did a great job there. He was like so close to being offside, but it was just perfectly executed tactical goal that totally caught England offside. So it was good. It was a good match, and obviously, I think we're all happy with the result.
Look, now that the main crisis has been averted of England not winning the tournament, we now have to revert our gaze back to the fact that Spain is just extremely dominant and really, really forging ahead in terms of, I guess, being a stronger footballing nation than Italy, unfortunately, for the time being. I read some statistic that I think the Spanish teams have been involved in like 27 of the last major tournament finals, and that they've won 27 times. So it seems like whenever there's a Spanish team in any form of a final, they win. That's pretty shocking, to be honest. Looks like Serie A in Italy are unfortunately quite a while a ways from that, but uh, I guess small steps are small steps. Let's move on to the Copa America final, where we had a bit more success from a Serie A related perspective. Our boy, our captain, our hero, Lautaro Martinez, scoring one of the worst finishes of all time to win the Copa America. Um, I've never seen someone shoot directly at the goalkeeper's stomach and still somehow manage to score. But I was really happy for the guy when he did score. And I remember following the game while you were raging in our group chat, Irfan, or raging about the injustice to Inter and to Lautaro, that useless Julian Alvarez was starting and having a useless game, and then Messi came off, and even though Messi had to be withdrawn due to injury, they still didn't put Lautaro on until quite late, and then Lautaro came on and was the hero. So in the end, all was good, but I bet that felt pretty sweet to you.
Yes, I felt completely vindicated. As our viewers will remember, like we recorded before the Argentina match, and before the final, and I was pretty adamant that Argentina has a bad history of treating Inter players and Serie A players very unfairly, and especially Inter players. And I thought that Lautaro was being quite disrespected, and honestly, the match, the final turned out exactly in a way how I expected, but then ended up being better than I expected because again, they started Julian Alvarez, which again, fine. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but you have Lataro. Like this is not the World Cup from a few years ago. You have Lataro in torrid form. Like he's really good right now. Like even though he had a bit of a drought with Inter, for Argentina, he's been performing from the start of this tournament. He's been performing. He was the leading goal scorer throughout the tournament, and then you put him on the bench to start the final. And then fine, if you want to go with that route, then do it. But then at 50, 60 minutes, when your offense is doing nothing, you don't even think about making a change. You don't put him in until after it goes into extra time. I mean, it's ridiculous. It was it was absurd. And he came on, and you're right. I was raging throughout, and it became so bad that even the American announcers, if you were watching the final in America, even the American announcers were like, "Well, Argentina has the tournament's leading goal scorer and one of the best strikers in the world on the bench still." And then my boy Clint Dempsey finally was like, I don't understand why they're not putting Lataro in. And then after they put Lataro in and he scored, he was like, I don't know why they didn't put Lataro in much earlier. And it didn't make any sense. And the thing that's going to irritate me is that I know the Argentinian fanboys and the Messi fanboys and all the kind of fans who have no tactical awareness are going to say, oh well, it played out exactly how it was supposed to play out. They used Lataro perfectly. It's like no, they didn't. Just because it worked out that they subbed him in like the 102nd or 103rd minute and he ended up scoring doesn't mean that that was the play or that was the plan all along or that that was the right decision. It was ridiculous. Like he should have been either starting that match or he should have been in that match by the 45th minute. And just because it worked out that he subbed in later and scored doesn't mean that had he not been in the match from the beginning or in the 45th minute, he wouldn't have scored much earlier and you wouldn't have had to play all this extra time and almost lose. So again, it just made me extremely angry. I do give credit to Argentina for winning. I think they're a much more robust side than people think. It's not just Messi. If you watch this tournament, most of the matches, Messi was literally just standing around, doing next to nothing. And he would have these moments where he would kind of click into gear. And he did set up Lautaro once, and he was pretty influential when he did do that because, of course, he's still very good. But this Argentina team is a lot more than Messi now, and really should function, I think, independent of him. Even though I know they're going to drag him as the face of the World Cup in the U.S. in 2 years because that's just the marketing play. But like Ronaldo, he should retire now gracefully and let everyone see what this Argentina team can do when they click together as a team and they're not just ball watching Messi.
Yeah, I remember about Alvarez in that match. That only thing he did was blocking some Messi shot early in the match, and I don't think he did anything else there, at least with the ball. And I agree with Irfan that it was incredible to see him. He played like 90 minutes and seven minutes into extra time before Lautaro came in for Alvarez, and it was truly incredible. But there was this triple substitution in the extra time when Lautaro came in, and it was Paredes and Lo Celso who came in, and I think all three guys contributed to the goal. It was, I think, Paredes passed to Lo Celso passed to Lautaro, and Lautaro had this great shot which went straight to the goal as expected, and yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see how they're gonna do from here because Lautaro was the golden boot from in this tournament, and he started two matches, I think, and played one 90-minute match. And other than that, he was just a sub guy, but managed to score 5 goals, including the like the winner in the final. So, and he's been scoring for the national team quite a lot apart from the World Cup, where he was actually injured. By the way, still played but was injured, and yeah, I don't know. It's just strange how Scaloni wants to prefer Alvarez this much. But it is what it is. I don't know. I can't really explain it. But on the other hand, Alvarez has been scoring goals, but in this tournament, it was definitely Lautaro's turn to be the guy.
I mean, look, being as objective as we can, I think Lautaro has a shout of being a better player than Alvarez. Again, if I was not an Inter fan and someone came and told that to me, I think I would agree. Reason being that he's the starter and captain of a Scudetto winning side, whereas Alvarez is like, I don't know, like a glorified substitute, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
he plays for arguably or maybe even objectively a better team in Man City. I mean, objectively they did beat us after all, but he's playing there as like a attacking mid sometimes. I think he's played on the flank sometimes. He obviously rotates quite a lot with Haaland, and it seems
yeah, and
like
he doesn't have the same responsibility in his club. Like there's Haaland who's supposed to score the goals, and Alvarez just comes in time to time to like play, but he's not the leader there, and he's not the main guy who's supposed to lead the line there. So it's a bit different role. I I, I can see that.
exactly not as much pressure.
Yeah,
On top of
yeah,
that, he's not like a captain there or anything like that off the pitch either. So I do think Lautaro is arguably a better footballer than Alvarez for whatever that's worth. And yeah, like I hope Lautaro does get more starting time ahead of Alvarez moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, we should move on to our next topic. Miko, I demand an explanation. I'm holding you personally accountable for the fact that Bento moved to Al Nassr for just 18 million, and we didn't want to sign him and signed Martinez for 15 million instead because Bento was allegedly too expensive. I'll give you the floor. Explain yourself.
I can explain it that there must have been some kind of demand from the either from the agent directly or some kind of a third party who's maybe owned the rights of Bento or whatever, uh, which made the total price too high for Inter because he ended up getting like 6 million net salary at Al Nassr. So it's a bit different to what we are paying to Martinez, which is like million and a half or something. Uh, so yeah, nothing else to add. That it was still too expensive, but we are maybe we, we are maybe not seeing it from the reports directly. Apart from the salaries, we can make the calculations there.
So what you're saying is Bento is not four times the player Martinez is.
Yeah, without seeing any Bento matches, I would make the claim that he isn't worth
Have you
four
seen any
times.
Martinez matches? All I know is that he conceded 2 goals against who do we play the other day in a friendly?
I think it was Lugano.
Ghana.
Lugano. Yeah.
Yeah,
Perennial
yeah,
yearly whipping boys. I heard that Martinez did not look great.
yeah. I heard it. I didn't watch it, but I read that
Yeah,
he didn't have any saves at all.
I heard Di Gennaro looked better. To be honest,
Oh man, now we've got a Finnish summer and a new guy who can't make saves.
that's right. But you know who
Yep.
is back? Radu is back.
Oh
True.
no.
Speaking of finished, our our American, our Captain America, our response to Milan's Christian Pulisic, our Tanner Tasman, his Inter adventure finished before it started, and the reports are that Inter grew tired or Inter were annoyed by his or his agent's behavior, and eventually the move was aborted. Oh, fine, take me through this one. I mean, why do you think the move fell through? Again, do not feel the need to stick to reality. I want you to explore whatever kind of tangent you wish to fabricate in your own mind, whatever kind of predisposition or biases you have. Feel free to go through those channels. Why did the Tasman deal fall through? And did we dodge a bullet here? What do you think?
I feel like the agent's demand for Ford F-150s parked in a garage in Milan with how expensive gas is was something that Inter just could not afford.
Inter couldn't get the clearances for their AR-15s.
That too. There's not a lot of hunting ranges in Milan city proper. But no, I don't know. I mean, the whole like we discussed, the whole thing was very weird from the very beginning. It didn't make a lot of sense. It honestly felt like maybe they were just going for a American adventure to try to bring somebody in from America, since Juventus have one or have two, and Milan have two as well. So maybe that was the play. It didn't make a lot of sense. I was not terribly disappointed that we didn't end up getting him. Maybe he's a great player. Maybe he'll flourish to be an even better player. But from where I'm sitting, yeah, if the agent or him demanded pretty much literally anything other than signing this piece of paper and saying thank you for the opportunity, I also would have walked away, because again,
I know,
who
right?
is
I
this
know.
guy?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
who the fuck do you think you are? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you are some fucking American playing in Serie B.
yeah,
Basically, Inter offers him the chance of a lifetime on the condition that he do like a year-long internship at Venezia.
yep,
A club has been at for 3 years, so he should be pretty fucking comfortable there.
yes,
But he seems to refuse, and well, it sounded like, or at least from the reports that I saw, it seems like the breakdown happened or had less to do with money and salary and more to do with his choice
yep,
of destination for the loan period.
yep,
He seemed like he really, really did not want to stay in Venezia.
yep.
I've not been to Venezia, but I've heard that Venice is one of the most beautiful places on the entire planet. So, what's up with this fucking ingrate? Is there not enough Carl's Juniors in Venice or something? Like, what's going on? He misses the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. I notice you Americans call burger sandwiches, which is in its own disgrace, but whatever. Let's not go there. Look, I'm torn on this because in some ways I kind of respect him for standing up for what he wants to do, which is like, he doesn't want to go on loan. He wants to, go to whatever club he's going to go to and, and establish himself properly. I can respect that to a degree. I can also respect that, or rather, I'm also glad for the fact that we don't have to deal with this guy, in the fact that I don't think he's a great player to begin with. But, like I was saying to you guys offline, this kind of just random idiocy kind of triggers me regardless of whether it's in my favor or not. Like, again, who does this guy think he is?
Yeah, especially a team that's back in Serie now, right? Venezia's
I
back.
don't know,
So,
exactly. We won't even ask him to stay in Serie B. They literally got promoted, so he would have been playing in the top division, and he
yeah,
still said no. And again, this is a club that he would have been, or that he is already established at. If I'm not mistaken, I think I've even seen him wear the captain's armband once or twice. So
yeah.
he's like, we just asked him to chill out for a year, is all it was. And he's like, nah, man, fuck you. I'll take my chances. Like, who does that? Miko, explain this madness to me.
Yeah, I think you guys like said it pretty well. I don't know. I don't have any good explanation on that, but I feel also that it wasn't about money, more about the destination and this. I don't know. Was he like, or try? Does he try to force a move somewhere else maybe, and he doesn't want to stay at Italy at all or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe he's
but
like
for me,
Calafiori and dreams of Arsenal or dreams of the EPL.
As a child, I dreamt of playing for Arsenal.
Yeah.
but as for the player, I wouldn't have been sad if he signed for Inter. I feel like we might need some kind of a one midfielder who's a bit more physical maybe. But and I think this guy would have been like that. But yeah, can't say I'm sad now that he didn't wanna come to Inter. Then it's like, okay, whatever, however you wanna do this. But yeah, no, no, nothing to add to this saga, if you wanna call it
Speaking
that.
of speaking of not coming to Inter, looks like we got Bremed for Cabal. Basically, we had the deal set, and then Juventus came in at the last minute and offered plus 1 million on whatever we did. So uh, they got us good. And now it sounds like we're moving on to some other prospect called, what's his name, Roberto Renan or something. I've not seen him play, never heard of him in my life, but I'm all for the move. Cabal, do you think we missed out on anything here? I did see a couple of stats
Yeah.
that at least statistically indicated that he was in the top of some metrics, in his position. And so, at least on paper, the guy looked like a decent prospect. But, I think, Miko, you made a good point about Thiago Jallo, who was another young prospect that we kind of tapped up, and then only for Juventus to come in at the last minute and poach off us again. But I'll ask you to touch on Cabal, not in a rapey way, but touch upon Cabal, and also tell me how you feel about this trend of Juventus, just like just trying to gimp us with this last minute. Like, look, it seems the strategy is just to watch us at the last minute, just come in and be like, plus, here's plus 1 million or whatever the fuck we negotiated after months of negotiating. Doesn't it like, even if like the players don't amount to much, it still kind of pisses you off, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't lie. It kind of a bit of a pisses me off. But then
It's such a bitch
maybe
move,
the
you know what I mean?
yeah, and I read from somewhere that this has been like the modus operandi of Giuntoli for a long time since he's been from, I don't know, Syria C G or whatever, and he's always like everywhere and like hassling around and interfering other people's business and especially the rivals. So maybe we can expect more of this. But by the way, Bremer wasn't from Giuntoli, but the Thiago Giallo was last January. So maybe this is just the way he does things. But at some point, I think they will end up not having enough money, at least in the, I don't know, the financial regulations wise. So I hope we doesn't keep having him in the bushes all the time. But yeah, as for the cabal thing, I read that actually Inter or Maratto wasn't ready to pay even the 8 million, which was in the rumors, and there was the 8 to 10 million what Verona initially asked or something, and yeah, there was a report that Marta would have paid like six plus bonuses, and the cost ended up being 11 to Verona, and then almost 2 million to the agent, which sounds absolutely ridiculous, given that what kind of player we're talking about, some random guy from Verona, and then the bonus is 2 million, so he might cost Juve almost 50 million. So that's quite a large distance to the 6 million or 8 million, which was the or seems to be the limit we are ready to pay uh, for the defender we are looking for. So yeah,
Fine. Are we at disadvantage here by our we do not negotiate with terrorists kind of approach here, where you know again, if we're known to not negotiate and someone else just comes in and says, "Look, I'll give you plus 1 million," then
Yeah.
by default that bid is always going to be better than ours, and we're not going to match it. Are we at a disadvantage? Fam, are we cooked?
I guess against a bigger fish, which reluctantly and begrudgingly Juventus is. I feel like we kind of do that to Milan too, though. Like we'll like offer basically every player ever linked with Inter is also linked with Milan, and a lot of times we'll end up winning because we'll just pay them a little bit more. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the way the world works, but I do think that I'm not concerned as long as it stays to this kind of tier of player because it's okay. Like as good as Cabal might or might not have been, I'm sure you can find an alternative in the market that serves a similar purpose for the budget that you did have in mind. So not overpaying, I think, is smart in that sense. But obviously, if there's a player that we really, really, really love and we really wanted, honestly, I think Bremer was probably a pretty big loss for us in the grand scheme of things, especially in the context of all the Skriniar drama that was happening. So if there's a player who would be a potential starting player for us and we lose out on it because of our kind of hardline negotiation tactics on dealing with agents and dealing with fees and things like that, then I do think that that's a bit disservice. Like that intransigence, I think, can end up costing us. But when it's a player who's going to be a backup and who's a prospect, then it doesn't bother me as much.
I think this, especially this couple case, is like what Irfan mentioned, that this guy, no one ever heard from this guy before, like 2 weeks ago when the rumors appeared, and now he doesn't come to Inter, so we just move on, and no one should care too much about this case. Only negative is that we don't have the guy in the preseason, so that's not the optimal case. But other than that, no harm done, and we just keep looking at the alternatives now.
Yeah, we can go back to not knowing and not caring about this guy like we all did 2 weeks ago, as you
Yeah,
say, Nico.
When you come across, like, you do spring cleaning and you come across something, you're like, oh, it seems a bit too good to throw out, or, oh, I could still use this. But then the reality is you didn't even know you had it for like 3 years. So, like, there's no harm done from throwing it out. So I feel like Cabal is kind of the same here. I didn't know he existed 2 weeks ago. Now that Juventus want him, it's kind of like, oh shit, I kind of want him. I see these stats and I'm like, oh, it looks like a promising young defender, but then we miss out on him, and I guess I have to try and uh, take that attitude of, who gives a shit? I didn't even know he existed 2 weeks ago, and now I can hopefully go back to not knowing who he was. Having said that, um, speaking of Juventus, we have been very, very lightly, but recently linked to Chiesa. I want your thoughts on this transfer, Miko. Should we sign Chiesa if there's an opportunity to do so decent uh, at a decent sum?
no, short answer. But if next summer somehow Chiesa ends up being a free agent, it would be, I don't know. I feel like I would want to see the signing, but then on the other hand, I'm not really sure can we fit him into our lineup properly. Maybe we could. Inzaghi is a god, so why not? But definitely not in this summer. I don't want to pay anything for the risk, because I think after all the injuries, he's not the same player anymore, and I don't want to give any money to Juve because they want to get rid of the guy anyway. They need the money from that sale. So yeah, not this summer, but next summer would be interesting if we ended up signing him. I remember we were linked to him when he at Fiorentina still, and we had Conte, right? No, now I'm confusing something. But I remember we were linked to Chiesa
Yeah, we were.
back
We were.
then. Yeah, and I think we played already with the 3-5-2, so it must have been Conte. And I think we were wondering what's the deal here, how he should, or how Conte would be using Chiesa. And I remember that there were talk that okay, he might be the right wing back, and then it was like I don't know how it would work really, but somehow I would want to see how Inzaghi would use Chiesa if he really wanted the guy, because he's at his best, he's really really talented and like a real force offensively. But the injuries are definitely a risk. So yeah, not to this summer, but maybe in the future if something happens, something strange.
Fun. What say you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he's very talented. He plays well for Italy when he plays, but I also worry about the injuries. He doesn't seem, as of right now, like the same type of player. He could bounce back this year and have a really good year, and be a good asset for Juventus on the pitch. And then if they need to sell him, then to get some money in. But I'm also skeptical unless you can get him at like a really kind of cut price deal, and you have like a very dedicated plan for how to integrate him and use him. I would kind of pass on this one because yeah, I don't know what you're getting at that point. You're getting a player who was immensely talented and very successful for Juventus and for the Italian national team. but what are you getting now is the question. So I don't know. I'm skeptical of it. I do think that um, what's that talent or whatever is permanent, or and form is temporary and all that, but class is permanent, and form is temporary. But I don't know. I'm skeptical that, given where our holes are, that he's the kind of player that we need right now. I think if we have limited resources, I'd rather use those expended other places in our squad rather than towards Chiesa.
At the end of the day, what it boils down to is there's no natural position for him in the team, so he'll be playing in a kind of compromised role, which is neither of benefit to us nor the player himself. So yeah, I agree that Chiesa is probably one that we have to, with a slight regret, let pass. So we did also finalize the transfers of Alex Perez, a young centre back from Real Betis, plus Topalovic, a young Serbian midfielder. Look, I
Slovenian,
don't know anything about.
Slovenian.
Sure, sure.
Y-
I don't know anything
Yeah,
about either of these guys. Have anything you'd like to share about them? Any
yeah. I think
insights?
not too many insights, but I read that the Perez guy should be somewhat of a like promising guy, and we had some kind of a deal to first loan him, and then we have the option to buy. And why that kind of a deal? Because he was having his contract run out for next summer, so we managed to pull this kind of a deal. And I don't know. Maybe he's good. Maybe not. He's gonna. I've understood he's gonna train with the first team in preseason, and then probably he's gonna be playing in Primavera because he's only 18. So that's the way they do it in Italy, anyway. But yeah, I think that's very low risk transfer, since we aren't gonna pay too much, and well, we aren't gonna pay anything if he's not good, but if he's good enough, we're gonna pay only 500k, and then some bonuses maybe if he ends up playing for the first team, I assume. So
How much did
so
we pay
yeah,
for Topalovic?
I don't know. Was it like less than a million, some 80k or 800k or something like that? I remember, but it wasn't even a million. So I remember us signing some youth players for much more than these kind of numbers. So can't be can't be sad
Like
about these
Facundo,
these guys. Eh, Col-
like
Collidio, yeah,
Facundo,
for
who cost us like
for
10 million or something.
yeah, 7-8 million or something, or Salcedo, and
Eddie
who's
Salcido
who's
cost us like 15 million
who's
or something.
who's still back. I think he's again with the first team, and we need to find a location for him again. But yeah, I kind of like these kind of signings, uh, because, well, I think we've been doing this kind of signings before, but maybe there's hasn't been as much reporting of this. So I don't know. Is it just like there's been more reporting of these, so they feel more relevant or more important signings, but then the real reality can be different.
But
So
guys,
I don't
we
know, but
don't.
it's a
I was just gonna say, I don't think we need to be so humble. These are clearly two massive coups in the market, and will probably be the backbone of a treble-winning side in 2028. And I'm just gonna go on record now, because no one's gonna remember in 3 years, that I am full-fledged in favor of these signings. I think they're transcendental players, and they will be, career defining for whoever found them, and they will be. Club defining for Inter in our next round of dominance that will come at the end of this decade.
okay. I'll take
Look,
it.
I'm wildly bemused by the fact that, firstly, Perez market value is like literally 50k. Like I could have bought him and just like hide him to like do some errands around my fucking house. So that's one thing. The second thing is we apparently pay, or as it's a loan deal, we agreed to potentially redeem the loan for something close to 1 million. Like, why are we paying such an inflated figure for a guy who's worth really jack shit? Like 50k is nothing for a for an 18-year-old prospect who has any semblance of promise. I mean, just the other day, the other week, Man United bought that. What's that guy's name? Lenny Yoro, or is it Yenny Loro? I don't know. Some French centre back for, I believe, 63 million euros, and here we are. We're taking the safe option by loaning a youth player valued at 50k, and they're the same age. So I don't know. I'm not. I don't expect anything from this, but whatever.
You know what? You know what? The same could have been said for Curlon or for Salcido, and we know how that worked out. So don't be so negative.
Look, I just remember my fondest memory of Curlon is watching some guy just kick him in the chest while he was doing his signature seal dribble.
That was essentially a metaphor for his career.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Basically talk shit, get hit kind of thing. Let me ask you this: beyond these two guys, or beyond Inter signings in general, have you guys seen any interesting transfers around the continent that have kind of, sparks your interest, or that's an interesting signing, I might keep an eye on this guy moving forward kind of thing? I'll give you one. I think Xerxes is doomed at Man United. I consider his transfer to Man United to be like a 1 year loan before he inevitably joins Milan on a year loan deal with an extremely favorable redemption. So it is what it is, but I think he's cooked. I think Man United is a terrible destination for him right now.
Uh, I think I agree with you. I think they signed Højlund last summer for a massive price, and then he kind of didn't live up to the expectation, which were obviously high because of the high price. And he's a young guy, and Xerxes is, well, pretty young guy still, and and it's pretty high price as well. Okay, the release clause was like, what was it, 40 million, but there's the commission, so it's definitely over 50 the whole, total price for the club. And yeah, I, I can see the failure from a million miles away. It's gonna happen. So yeah, I think he's getting loaned next summer somewhere.
Yeah, can't you
Hopefully
just see it?
Milan.
Xerxes, exactly. Xerxes, flops at Man United, and then joins Milan on a 1 year loan with an option to buy at like 25 million or something stupidly fucking favorable, and then he has a great season at Milan, and the rest is history. I can just taste it.
Yeah, it's written in the stars.
Exactly. Yeah, the greatest fear I have in my life is that, well, I guess I'm less afraid now than I was a year ago or a year or two ago. But the greatest fear I had was Skriniar essentially flopping at PSG and then being loaned back to Juventus or Milan on the cheap. That would have just broken me.
Yeah,
I,
I
I,
don't think you
I
need to
think
worry
they
about that. Luckily,
I think they want to get rid of Skriniar now, but he doesn't
yeah,
want to
they
leave
do.
Paris anymore.
Why?
So
Why would he
it's,
leave that salary?
Yeah, what is it,
yeah.
9.5 million or something?
Yeah, but I will say, in terms of other intriguing signings, I don't know if you guys caught this, but the once great French player Lilian Thuram's only son signed for Juventus, and he's apparently going to be really good. And we'll see what ends up happening. But props to Juventus for signing Kefren Thuram.
Is this just an extension of them, trying to poach our signings?
Maybe they got their first name wrong. I don't know. But but by all accounts, he does seem like a promising prospect. I know there's a lot of Inter fans who wanted him at Inter, so it's an intriguing signing. It's not necessarily the type of signing they typically make, also. So I'm curious to see how it turns out. But I did think it was hilarious when he signed for Juventus, and then Lilian Thuram basically showed up on the comments page on the Insta and was just like, "I'm here for the comments," because everyone was commenting on how Thuram's only son finally made it to the club of his father's dreams or something like that. And so now I think this little sibling rivalry thing is pretty hilarious.
From what I've seen, we could have used a player a bit more dynamic, like Thuram, in the midfield, but there's probably no space for him. I do think Juventus got a pretty good deal. What did they pay? Like 20 million, 25 million? That seems like a decent price for a decent young player. I'm most bitter about the fact that I saw one of the kind of announcement videos on Juventus Instagram where they've done this like CG kind of thing where you've got Lilian Thuram and he's running. It's like actual in-game footage, right? And he's running down the pitch, and then he passes off to a player, and then it transitions to Kefren Thuram receiving the ball in a Juventus training jersey, and they've obviously kind of spliced current day training footage of Thuram with like old game footage of Lilian. I thought that was really, really cool, and all I could think about was our fucking episode 5, season 2 of New Brothers or Brothers of the World or whatever this F grade House of the Dragon ripoff that we're doing on Intermedia House. I find all our videos cringy in the extreme. Footballers are, I'm pretty sure I've said this verbatim in the past, but footballers are not actors. And so when you follow this generic template of like some woman saying these wannabe kind of meaningful, vague, esoteric phrases like in the darkest of night, the challenge is the hardest, and then a true warrior rises and all this bullshit, and then it zooms in on fucking Taremi, who's dressed like the Prince of Persia or some fucking Roman gladiator or some absolute nonsense, and then he says in this weird choked nervous voice, he's like, I am Medi Forza Inter, and then the whole video is just like, oh man, that's so cringe, that's so bad. And this is like the template we do for every Intermedia House video, every announcement video. I just wish we'd stop. I really wish we'd stop. Like I said, that Juventus video with Lilian passing into Kefren was actually legit cool. So that did make me a little bit jealous, I must say. But I don't know. I guess
you're always jealous about others. It's never good for. It's never good at
right.
Inter.
Severe inferiority complex. I mean,
But
look, I can't feel good about watching Zielinski, climb a mountain or something in like some obvious, horrendous green screen footage. You know what I mean?
I want to mention Juve not for signings they've made, but what they might be making is they try to sell Chiesa. Okay, they try to sell Sule as well for over 30 million, and they need the money to buy Coop Miners from Atalanta, and I think the Coop Miners signing would be very good for them, very bad for others, the rivals, including Inter. I think they would be like creating their whole midfield again with this. They signed what was the Luis guy from
Douglas.
Aston Villa.
Yeah,
Douglas
Douglas.
Lewis from Aston Villa, and then Kefren.
Don't forget his girlfriend.
Yeah, the Instagram milking.
Who has more followers than us?
Oh yeah, that's right.
No doubt. Yeah. So yeah, that's his girlfriend, right? Who's the name? Lehman.
Alicia Lehman, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's a good marketing thing for sure. But I think she's a good player as well. But yeah. But then, anyway, I think Juve is making good moves if they can pull the Coop Miners deal. I think they have to deal with the player.
That would be a strong move for them, no doubt. If we're talking about WAGs, we have to mention Morata coming back to Italy, of course, playing for the wrong Milan club, but going to Milan. But there's been a couple of very interesting kind of transfers out from Serie A clubs, like a lot of names that have been around for a long time. I mean, for Inter, obviously we sold Oristano and Zanotti, which is our big sales. But there've been a couple of other ones that have been interesting. So Juventus was able to sell Keane to Fiorentina, which is, I think, a good move for them because that guy's not going to play.
What a jerk that was.
I think it was like 30 million plus 5 million bonuses, and the guy had 0 goals last season. What the?
Yeah. I know, and they're still
It's
able to get
incredible.
something for him. But I do think, Roma, for example, they remember that guy Hussam Ouar that came in, and everyone was like, "This guy's full of potential, and he's great." And Roma signed
Yeah,
some guy. He's a coup coming from the French league. Well, they sold him to Al Ittihad for like 12 million, and I don't think he did much of anything last year. They also sold Bellotti to Como, so Como is going to be in the run for the Champions League spots. And then, of course, Spinazzola went to Napoli. But for our perspective, from Inter perspective, notorious Inter killer Luis Alberto from Lazio is now gone. He went to the Middle East, and Immobile and Felipe Anderson are also gone from Lazio. So definitely a brand new sort of looking team that they've got over there.
Yeah, actually, I think Lazio signed Castrovilli from Fiorentina as like a free signing, free agent.
yeah, they
Yeah,
did, they did.
that's a
But
good move.
Castrovilli's
We,
cooked. He hasn't been good since his breakout season. That was like 4 years
y-
ago.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
linked to Inter back then, but yeah, I think the injuries have ruined him completely.
and
But
there's
yeah,
that
let's
other
see.
Uruguayan midfielder we were linked with too for a while, right? It, like right around the
Hernandez.
same time. Yes, Nandez. That's the one. But yeah, dude, Milinkovic also is gone. Another player that Inter fans were always mulling whether he would be the answer to our center back.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Milenkovic joined Nottingham
Nottingham.
Forest.
I,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah. So lots of changes. It'll be interesting to see what the league looks like this year.
Look, speaking of
yeah.
Kane, I saw the reveal, no, the announcement at the Fiorentina stadium. They had some like giant inflatable uh, dart board, like a football dart kind of board. You see those things where it's like a dart board, but obviously you're supposed to like kick a football instead of throwing darts, and like the football's like I don't know, made of Velcro or something, so it sticks to the dartboard. The guy just kept missing the fucking thing. It was embarrassing. He couldn't hit it.
Yeah,
It was it was embarrassing. He couldn't hit it, man. I'm thinking, what have these guys done? Like this is just embarrassing all around. I can't believe Fiorentina paid money for this guy. Seriously, Kane was finished the moment he left Juve the first time.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think he had a good season at PSG, like one season, but I think he was on loan there or something. Was he on loan from Everton or what? How was it? I think it
Yeah, I think
was.
he was at Everton, right? Like I think that's where they sold him initially. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but yeah, I think he hasn't done much for Juve after he came back.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
he was sold to Everton from Juve and then was loaned to PSG pretty much straight away. Um, he did okay at PSG, like you said, and then came back to Juve and has been pretty, I don't know, pretty shit ever since. But I think, yeah, from pretty much the moment Juve sold him to Everton in the first place, that was when he was cooked. The move to Everton ruined him, and now he's just a finished player at the age of 24. He's going to need like a real big season to get back to any kind of national team contention or any kind of to kind of regain the respect that he's lost. I think he's unfortunately gone just down the drain like too many young talents these days that are accepting big money moves at a young age and eventually
Yeah. So we
just
should
making poor career decisions.
Yeah, we should really like. I'm very curious to see in because we have these anecdotes obviously, but I'm very curious to see overall how Syria based players moving to the EPL have turned out. I imagine they're not great. Like the record we have of English teams buying Serie A players. I'm not saying Italian players, but just players who kind of cut their teeth and became well known in Serie A and how they did when they moved to the EPL. I don't think it's a great track record. But then, of course, there's probably some exceptions as well. But it seems like a lot of kind of younger talents moving to the EPL. I know you're talking about this with Xerxes in mind too. They don't really pan out in the EPL, and they end up coming back to Serie A. So we'll see what happens with like someone like Hoyland and things like that. But it seems like a bit of a checkered experience.
Agreed.
And your boy Jay, your boy Thorsby signed an official permanent move to Genoa, so you should be happy about that.
Oh, Morton Thorsby.
and I know you love him mainly because he's apparently, I did not know this, but he's apparently a very passionate environmental activist, and
Yeah,
he
that's why he
chose the
was number
number
two.
2. Yeah, that's unbelievable. What a great,
Because we need to
what a great
we need
story.
to we need to, what do you call it, reduce the Earth's temperature by 2 degrees to prevent global warming or something along those lines. Morton Thorsby is a
Yes,
hero
he is the hero.
and the solution to our midfield problems. Now that we've lost, now that we've lost Tessman.
I don't think we can ever. I don't think we'll recover from losing Testman. I think the season's cooked. I'm surprised you didn't say that.
Well, you know it's implied by the fact that I'm on the podcast. So
But I gotta say, in terms of like interesting moves across the continent, I mean, it has to be Mbappe at Real Madrid, right? Like, I'm so curious how that guy's going to fit in on that squad because you talk about a player who like definitely needs a change of scenery and a change of attitude, and it's got to be Mbappe, right? I mean, I'm very curious to see what Ancelotti can do to him and if he can turn him into like a complete player again and not just like some selfish player who's literally doing the same move over and over again, trying to score and just shooting into people's like boots. So I'm very curious how that works out, how those egos work out, and luckily they've got Ancelotti who can probably handle it better than anybody. But that's probably going to be the move across the continent that's going to be the most interesting to see the repercussions of because that team's already so stacked.
yeah, and I think positionally as well, because I mean, he is a left wing forward, as is Vinicius. You've got your two best and most expensive players literally occupying the same position. That's not, yeah, it's not a good problem to have, to be completely honest. You're going to get egos, you're going to get tactical kind of issues. So the obvious thing to do is make Mbappe a straight up number 9, but whether that's the best move for him, who even knows? Obviously, on paper, Mbappe, Vinicius, supported by Bellingham, sounds insane, but we'll see how it pans out. I've heard Bellingham was actually pretty unpopular among some of the England fans. Sorry, among some of the England players. Like, despite him being arguably their best player, that they were not pleased with his like motivational halftime team talks. I think so. That'd be funny if it was true, but whatever.
I think the ego angle is interesting in Real Madrid because I can see, okay, there's Vinicius and Bellingham was there this season or the past season, so there's two egos. But then if you add Mbappe, so there's three. Can you handle that kind of a triangle in a sense that they are all star players and they want to play and like Jay, you mentioned the positional unoptimal situation and all kind of all, what that kind of situation can create inside the locker room. So yeah, there's I think it's Ancelotti has some kind of a he has work to do with that situation. I can see it definitely.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that's probably about all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. I was joking when I said Andrew left the podcast. He's actually, I don't know, where is he, guys? Do you recall where he said he would be?
He was just angry about the Inter Mercado, so he was so depressed.
He's staging a sit down protest. Now, Andrew will be back next week. In any instance, thanks for joining us again, guys, and talk to you all next week.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Enjoy them.